I left you by saying I was gonna walk you through some different stages or tell you a bit more about the process of brand familiarity. Keeping in mind, it affects the 4 Ps. That's the big thing to remember. It affects the 4 Ps. When we talk about brand familiarity, we're talking about products. So brand familiarity helps us to recognize or understand how a marketer tailors the customer's perception of their product or brand to the message they're sending. It might be easier to think of this process or these levels of brand familiarity from the customer's point of view. Think of my Lay's potato chip example. I told you that I was familiar with Lay's, and it made me feel more comfortable purchasing Lay's potato chips. We're not always comfortable with purchases when we're familiar with brands. Maybe there's a brand that I know, but I don't like. Maybe there's a brand that I know that I really, really like, that I have to have. Those are examples of things that are represented here in the levels of brand familiarity. Before we get into each level, I want to quickly talk about the process. Some people may see this and think it's a step from one to the other, which is not necessarily the case. And that will become more clear as we talk about each level. Let me just say quickly, there may be a brand that doesn't include all of these levels for you. Maybe there's a brand out there that I've never rejected, or I've never said I don't like. Maybe I just recognize the brand and prefer it. The idea is the marketer wants to move their customer down these levels. If I know that my customer recognizes me, I'd prefer it if they prefer me. If I know that my customer prefers my brand, I'd like it the best if they insist on having the brand. What I want you to keep in mind is there are good and bad places to be along these levels. If I'm a company, I don't want to be in the rejection phase. It's bad. I do want to be in the insistence phase. It's good. The colors help here. Rejection is the worst. That's why it's at the top. As a marketer, we don't want to be rejected. As a person, we don't want to be rejected. We do want to be insisted upon. As a person, as a marketer, as a brand, it's always nice to be insisted upon. And this will become more clear as we start talking about each level. First, rejection. Rejection is when a potential customer refuses to buy the brand. Think of the word reject. It's bad, right? If I am in the rejection level of brand familiarity, it means I know the brand, I'm familiar, and I don't like it. That brand pissed me off, it did something I don't like. Maybe I tried it once and it was bad. Maybe I saw a commercial that really was offensive. Maybe I've heard really bad things. There are probably cases that you can think of right now where you or someone you know has rejected a product or brand. From the marketer side, it's bad. Not quite as bad in the eyes of the marketer is non-recognition. It's not possible to move from rejection to non-recognition. Again, to reject a brand, I have to actively say no. Non-recognition means I'm not actively saying no because I don't know about the brand. I'm just unaware. Some think this is also a bad place to be in the eyes of the marketer. It is. As marketers, we want people to be aware of what we're offering so they can make the purchase. The good news in the marketing angle is that it's easier to make people see your product or brand favorably if you haven't already pissed them off. So it's harder to dig yourself out of rejection than it is just to be recognized. These are bits of life advice as well. It's harder to dig yourself out of rejection than just not be recognized. There are certain things we can do, both in life and in marketing, to make ourselves recognizable. It's about creating our brand. Our personal brand is similar to a company's brand. It's what you value, it's what matters to you, it's your image. If I'm in the non-recognition phase as a consumer, it means I just don't know about the brand. When I went to China, I was in the non-recognition phase with all kinds of products. I just didn't know any of them because I had never been to China. A common place to be is recognition. It means you're familiar with a brand, you remember the brand. Maybe you don't feel strongly one way or another. You don't love it, you don't hate it, but you recognize it. The recognition phase of branding is what allowed you to participate in my question earlier today. I said, what are these? And you told me logos. And you could recognize the Apple logo as an association of the Apple brand. That's because you're in the recognition phase or higher with Apple. Maybe you have a preference for Apple products or for another brand. Preference means you choose one brand over competitive alternatives. For example, if I have the decision to go and buy a pair of jeans, maybe I know a certain store sells jeans that fit me really well. So if I have a preference, I would buy a certain brand of jeans over another. Doesn't mean that I have to have only this one brand, but it means I like it and I prefer it to others. Another example, if you go to 7-Eleven and you're looking for a sports drink to take to practice, maybe you prefer Gatorade over Powerade. Doesn't mean you have to drink Gatorade, but you like it enough that you'd choose it if you had the ability to. Using the same example, you may insist on Gatorade. Insisting on Gatorade is different than having a preference for it. It means you will only choose Gatorade. You won't accept an alternative. So you'll leave 7-Eleven if they don't have Gatorade, and you'll go to a different store, maybe CVS, so you can buy a Gatorade. You're set on having that particular brand or product. The thing to keep in mind here is that where we fall on this scale determines how a marketer will cater their message to us. The best place for us to be in the eyes of the marketer is in the insistence phase. Insistence means that we are set on a brand or product, and marketers love that. It's something that creates what they call customer evangelism. Customer evangelists go and tell their friends, you have to have this product because it's the best out there. A lot of people perceive Apple to be an example of insistence in the familiarity process in modern day. A lot of people won't accept any other kind of MP3 player or cell phone. They insist on only having Apple products. If you are that person, you are in the insistence phase. Here's some thinking food. I'm curious about the way you've experienced the brand familiarity process. As we just discussed, there are two extremes on either end of this. Rejection. You flat out refuse to be associated with a brand. Or insistence. You must be associated with a brand. What caused you to feel so strongly in either case, either in rejection or insistence? Let me know.